needs of the many outweigh the few. There, I think I got it. Okay, so you are listening to the bonus half hour. Why? Because I can. I didn't run out of things to say yet, and it was a day late, so why not? There's a few different movies I was really wanted to touch on. I started to mention a couple of these, and then I just kind of jumped around topics and looked at the clock and realized, oh no, I gotta wrap this up, and I still gotta close with the Bible verse. So yeah, I needed to do that. So then I was like reviewing the episode, and there's a lot of Bible verses that like I alluded to or I kind of paraphrased. So I'm gonna try to go back through there and get all the right Bible references and such to add to the show notes a little later on as well. But for now, I'm just gonna get back to a few subjects here. One of them that I started to mention and I got sidetracked was on Die Hard in particular. I did make the point about Ellis, but I started to make a comment about the fourth movie, and in particular to compare that with the fifth movie. And one of the reasons why the fifth movie is just so terrible. Terrible movie. Okay. One thing, a lot of people wouldn't like the Die Hard movies because the language is definitely a problem. As Christian things, we don't want a lot of foul language. But if technology is great, so if you have one of those things that you can select and edit out language, the fourth movie is pretty good, and I really like it. And what I was going to say about why that counts as a Die Hard movie, even though it's rated PG-13 rather than R, and the fifth one doesn't, is because at the heart of it, the character McClane, as illustrated in the first movie, and him even being upset and affected by the death of a guy like Ellis, who in many ways had it coming to him and deserved it. But very early in the fourth movie, there's the traffic jam. The bad guys are using technology and they're messing up with the traffic signals, and so there's this huge car wreck and everything, and John McClane, he's trying to save the day, but he stops and he helps these civilians who are in these cars. He's kind of assessing the situation, and he's checking on people and making sure they're okay, and he has this kind of sidekick character in that film with him. But nevertheless, it shows, his training as an officer is to serve and to protect, and that's one of the good, the things about John McClane that sets him apart from all other action heroes. I mean, some people just love that he has these quotable lines, that he is the every guy hero, but what makes him the every guy hero is just the humanity of this character. To me as a viewer, that's the part of him that, is just so great. It's like nobody in the first movies are just considered collateral damage. I mean, there's a lot of blood and gore. At the end of the first movie, the FBI agents die, and it's they're jerks, and like Ellis, they really had it coming to them. But nevertheless, John McClane really does his best to try to save even the stupid schmucks that deserve what's coming. And that's what makes him a good hero. It's like he cares. These people matter. They're not just in story. They're not considered just expendable to our main lead, to our hero. And the car wreck scene in the fourth movie, I think, is another iconic scene that really captures that. And then in the fifth movie, instead what we have is just this awful performance by Bruce Willis, and the character is called John McClane, but he just, at his essence and heart, he's not. We have in a mirror image to show the very reverse of what we see in the fourth movie. He steals this Russian guy's truck. He gets in this long car chase that feels like it lasts forever. I didn't clock it, and I'm not putting myself through that movie again just to see the exact length of time on it, so you'd have to just look it up for yourself if you're interested in those details. But it feels like it lasts 10-15 minutes of this long so-called action sequence where they're just slaughtering Russian civilians. I mean, it doesn't show the blood and gore of civilians, but, you know, the practicality is that you're seeing these cars crash and smash into one another, and John McClane doesn't care. It's just Russian civilians. They don't matter to him in this film. And that's, to me, the reason why this movie is just so awful. John McClane has completely lost all sense of humanity, all grounding, all purpose. It's just action for the sake of action. The story is weak. You know, there's all other kinds of criticisms that you could throw at it, but I think in comparison, you can compare those two scenes from the fourth movie and the fifth movie, and that there will illustrate the extreme difference between John McClane that we love, that is a hero, that is that every man's action hero, versus the John McClane that they gave us in the fifth movie. It was terrible. And what does that have to do with sacrifice? Because, I mean, that's our theme, and it's just, the point is, again, the idea of the hero is he's willing to risk himself to rescue others. And I really liked John McClane in the first movie and in the fourth movie because of that level of humanity, and you see more of the personality type that is drawn to law enforcement. You see, you know, that, you know, he's a guy. He jokes around and he seems like a real person. He's scared to fly in the first film, so you see a weakness there. It's also set up for him going barefoot through most of the film, which, you know, that's just clever writing, and you know, that's really neat detail, because he's scared of flying. He's told the tip to de-stress and stuff, so he takes off his shoes and he's trying to calm down and get his bearings and stuff and ready to talk to his estranged wife when all this other stuff happens. And so, you know, it provides an extra weakness to him in story and everything. It's just little details that make the first movie so good. If you like action films and things. And again, sometimes when I talk about the films that I like and what I like about them, and I have to remember, you know, there's a lot of people who would never have watched a movie like that because of the violence and the language. The language in particular in the Die Hard movies are bad. And so, like, yeah, you know, it's really nice that we have machines now that you can edit out bad words and stuff in movies like Die Hard. If the action aspects doesn't bother you. And, you know, that would make for an interesting debate. You know, sometime have a discussion, get some people on from different persuasions of, you know, different ends of the spectrum. You know, as Christians, what should we allow ourselves to watch when it comes to language and action and subject matters. What's appropriate, what's not, what is clinging onto that, the admonition from Philippians 4:8. And in film, vast majority of it's fiction. Even the historical stuff is actually mostly fiction. Speaking of sacrifice in movies, I like, and as long as we're going to swing towards the historical side, the movie Valkyrie. And in one of the earlier parts tonight I recorded, I mentioned Hitler and comparing, what Jesus said about if you would die for a good man, much less for an evil person, Valkyrie is a movie about real life events for the most part and plot to assassinate Hitler. And there were many, many different plots and different people involved in different plots to assassinate Hitler. And whenever Hitler survived, he would use that as an example of, see, I am special, I am chosen person to fulfill this destiny. And, the Lord eventually led it to not, but, Hitler used when he did survive to his advantage as best as he could in propaganda. But nevertheless, Valkyrie was the one that really came the closest, that had so many people involved, because it was by men in the military, the intelligence, and I think the foreign ministry, maybe, or whatever might have been the equivalent to that. There was people from the politician kind of circles that communicated and talked with people in the military, and they had all these little smaller circles, and they had to be very careful with getting together. You can't get together in large groups like that, because that would tip off that there's something going on, there's a plot. And so they had to operate in smaller circles with like one or two people as go-betweens between like this circle and that circle, kind of making like a chain link fence in order to keep from raising suspicion. The movie Valkyrie, I almost didn't watch it because of Tom Cruise. When I heard Tom Cruise was going to be in it, I was not looking forward to seeing it. And yet, the subject matter was just something I really wanted to see. So, instead I picked up some books, because the movie was coming out. And this is one thing that, like, people say, oh, don't watch a stupid movie. Go read a book instead. Well, you know what happens when a big movie comes out? A lot of books, gets promoted if they're related to this subject matter. So the movie industry and the book industry, they really end up helping one another. And so, Valkyrie was coming out in movie theaters, and Borders had this big display of books related to various plots to assassinate Hitler. So I got hooked on reading various historical books on the subject. There is a book called Valkyrie, and it's the biography of the last surviving member of that plot. And eventually, after reading, I think 6-7 different books on the subject, I did finally watch the movie Valkyrie, and I was surprised at how good it was. For who it was going to be in it, I didn't think they were going to get the historical information down very well, but they did a really fair job. There was a lot of things I felt was obviously they condensed down. There was a lot of individual people that didn't get as much focus that I think should have, to have a more accurate picture. And I felt like Tom Cruise's character, he played the part of von Stauffenberg, and in the movie they put too much on the shoulders of von Stauffenberg, and for sure he was very key in the plot, and he was very important, and the Germans do have high regard and respect